How's it going, folks? Mark from Like Minded Lunatics. Thank you so much for being here with me. I have a very special guest that I'm very pleased to bring to you. If you are a fan of Austin music, of Austin rock, Austin blues, then my guest needs no introduction. I have with me the one and only Ian Moore. Ian, how are you?
Fantastic, man.
Thank you so much for joining me. I really wanted to talk to you about your acoustic, your Christmas shows that are coming up here in Texas. You've got a number of dates, but before we get to that, the last time we talked, we did a long form interview about Muddy Jesus, and that was like at the end of the pandemic, kind of at the tail end of it. And it seems like after that interview, venues opened up and you were touring like a madman. And I just got to ask you, I have talked to a number of musicians and performers, and they have had really different experiences of that transition. Some have been really apprehensive about being in front of audiences. Some felt like it was coming home. What was your experience going from nothing to suddenly being in front of people?
Oh man, so many things. I mean, I loved it. I love the people and I mean, being able to play in front of my fans and my friends was huge. But the thing that sucked about it was everybody's worried about getting COVID the whole time, and it's kind of an extra stress, and you're already kind of stressed out. So that part was kind of lame. But, I loved playing music for people.
And how were the audiences that you experienced? Did you feel like people were really excited to be back, or there was this kind of like, ooh, boy, I don't know if I want to be here?
Both.
Both?
Both. I mean, some people were real nervous,
Sure.
And it's a group dynamic. So, if you have like 10% of the crowd feels kind of tripped out, I mean, that affects the crowd,
Sure. And I know that you've also been on tour here recently with ZZ Top. I know that you have toured with them in the past. So you have experience with that band. And just as a fan of ZZ Top, how are they doing after the unfortunate passing of Dusty? In your experience, how is it going for them?
I mean, they're doing good. I mean, it's part of being on the road, man. I mean, not to make light of it, but when I lost my bass player, Matt Harris, I realized he was my fourth bass player that had died. It's just part of the road, man. It's a hard part of this life.
Sure. Well, I'm glad they're out there. They're doing it again. How were those shows, by the way? Were they good ones?
Oh man, I mean, come on. Fantastic.
That's awesome to hear. The other thing I wanted to make sure I mentioned to folks is that I don't know if a lot of folks know this, but you are the co-founder and president of SMASH, and that's the Seattle Musician Access to Sustainable Healthcare. Is that correct?
Very good. Yes, it is.
And I know that Giving Tuesday has already passed, but also know that a lot of folks wait until the end of the year to give their charitable donations. And SMASH is a fantastic organization. So I thought I would take a moment and just let you tell folks, what is your mission statement? What type of services do y'all provide to the artists there in Seattle?
We provide preventative health care, dental care, mental health support, drug and alcohol support. I mean, basically, the mission is keeping musicians healthy because it's, as I just said, I mean, you let us well into it. It's a hard go, man. And musicians, even if you have healthcare, maybe you don't have a dental plan, maybe, therapy is expensive. I mean, we all got to go to therapy. I mean, right? Can we just say that?
We should be, I feel like.
Man, I think it's good for all of us.
And the other thing that really struck me, I was looking through some of y'all's literature before the interview, and one of the things that struck me is I think in one of your promotional packets, y'all specifically mentioned that people of color, as far as musicians are concerned, people from the LGBTQIA community as musicians, they are oftentimes even more marginalized than other musicians. And I thought that was a really cool thing that y'all are going out of your way to make sure that we level that playing field.
Trying, man. It's a hard, we're fighting a lot of forces, man. It's hard enough being a musician. I can't even imagine being a person of color or different gender identity. I mean, I'm a white dude and it's hard for me. I feel like I can barely pull it off, man.
Right.
It's crazy, but I'm glad we can help. That's the main thing.
Well, good. And I'm going to include the link to SMASH. Obviously, y'all are accepting donations. You have some really cool donation packages that I think folks should check out as well, with T-shirts and merch and all kinds of really neat stuff. And lastly, how was Bowie's the tribute to Bowie? I was pissed. I missed that, dude.
It was so epic, man. I did a post on social media, and when I was coming up, I mean, a lot of people in Austin know this, but I got compared a lot to Stevie Ray Vaughan. So when I was a kid, I never learned a Stevie Ray Vaughan solo ever, not one, because I was trying to, make my own name.
Yeah.
But getting to do the Bowie thing, I did one of the tunes I did was Cat People, and that's like Stevie's, I think, coolest solo on the record. And so it was like I did it note for note, and I had so much fun learning it. And then I sang Starman, which was rad too.
Oh, wow. Was any of that stuff recorded, Ian?
It was. I don't know what we're doing with it yet. I mean, it was so cool. Like, I mean, we had, Mike McCready from Pearl Jam. We had Head in the Heart. We had, we had so many. I'm trying to think, like a lot of Courtney from the Dandy Warhols. We had this band called the Filthy Friends, which is part of REM, and Sleater Kinney. And I mean, just badass bands, top to bottom, and then people even that people don't know unless you're like around Seattle that are like legends up here, It was cool.
What a great show. Well,
yeah,
so you now have some shows coming up. You've got several dates in Texas that you're doing your Christmas show. And am I right in this is the fourth time you've done this show here in Austin?
No, dude, it's like the 12th. I know.
What? Jesus.
Count.
Okay.
I'm losing count, man. It's been it's it's the fourth time I think at the stateside. Before that, it was the Siege Brew, and then it was the Cact. I don't even remember. It's been a long time now, but it's a cool show, man.
Gotcha. So I was going off Paramount's information, and they only have had it for 4 years. Then
they've had it for 4 years.
Gotcha. So if you were going to describe this show to someone who maybe has seen your other shows, how would you describe it? Because it's advertised as a Christmas show. How do you describe the show?
Well, I mean, if you've seen me for the last few years, I've pretty much delineated my career where like most of the year it's like full on boogie rock, blues, intense. Because I think people were getting too confused by the way I do. I'm just like a classic Austin artist, but unfortunately that is, people don't know that anymore, how that works. So Austin artists are weird and we just do whatever the hell we think of. And that's how I was raised. So that's how I made my records. And I would just go out and then I realized, wow, nobody else does this. I'm like a total freak because I'd be like, psychedelic blues one day and then like sound like I'm like French cabaret singer the next time. To me, it's like, that's not weird, but to everyone else, it was real weird. So what I do now is I do my band show through the year, and Christmas time, I just totally like, we're all kind of chilling out. We're sentimental. We're feeling emotional. Maybe we're depressed. Maybe we're happy, whatever. But we're not feeling the same way we felt in August, right? We're all kind of feeling different. So I'd lay out my kind of acoustic, mellow, more like, emotional. It's a different thing. And I'm actually I'm just, right before this interview, I uploaded 5 of my records that are going to be on streaming that weren't on streaming because I've been too busy.
Nice.
And I was listening to them just to make sure there were no like errors. And I was like, man, I'm a weird artist, man, like, because they're so different, and like, I think like, especially when I think of my peers and like the blues rock realm guitar players, I'm really the outlier because I'm like, I can hang with all those dudes and that's definitely part of my world, but none of those guys have another side where they make these records that sound like, whatever it is that I do. And it's all real for me. There's no bullshit about it. I just am who I am. And, it's kind of like you just do what you dig, right?
Yeah. I'm going to ask you, this is not necessarily focused on the Christmas show, but it just triggered something that I wanted to ask you. It seems like and maybe this is just my myopic view, but it seems like coming out of Texas, we have some really fascinating musicians, specifically like blues rock and things like that. And I'm thinking of like folks all the way from like Gary Clark Jr. to you. And it feels like we have a lot of those folks. Do you think that is just because we are a big state, or is there something weird that happens here that creates just kind of a different type of player?
Well, I mean, what do you mean, like guitar style, or what do you mean?
Yeah, kind of that blues rock style that we see specifically kind of in the Austin area and maybe down in San Antonio.
Started with everybody coming down to Austin like in the late 60s, early 70s with a certain vibe. And then like, that's how I grew up. And then, like Gary's younger than me. So he grew up, and Evie, Monzas and all of them, they grew up kind of in that same, there's Antones and
sure.
like, if you're like a guitar player in Austin, because I live outside of Seattle, and guitar players in Seattle, even if they like blues, it's just a different thing, because we all grew up going to Antones and seeing like Hubert Sumlin, all these dudes. So it's the way we play. Yeah, it's a weird thing. And, the other thing I was thinking about, if you think about like classic Texas music, and to me, and this is simplified just kind of from how I do it. And there's a billion other options, but I'd say like typically when I was coming up, you could be a guitar player or you could be a songwriter. And I remember being like, because typically you're either like Joe Ely or David Grissom, right?
Right.
You can't be both. And I was like, well, fuck that, man. 'Cause I love obviously all the guitar players, and that's definitely the thing that's in my world that's made the biggest impact. But dude, I grew up just as much. When I think about growing up as a kid, from what my parents were doing at the time, like Jerry Jeff Walker, Guy Clark, Townes Van Zandt, John, who am I? Who's it? Jesus Christ. Gary P. Nunn, obviously Willie Nelson,
Sure.
Those guys, and then later like Steve Earle and all them. Those are like Lyle Lovett, man. The first show I ever went to by myself was a Lyle Lovett show. He's playing the Cactus.
Wow.
Those dudes are every bit as Austin and Texas as the guitar players. And it's funny that more people haven't kind of sat in that space. I think Charlie Sexton's probably tried to do that a little bit more. Kind of his thing, like he's got a foot in the Archangel's world, but then you got this other side of Charlie too. And, just kind of an interesting thing. I think we have these little divisions and each generation comes up and I think like when I came up, I was like, I'm going to make my own rules,
Sure.
And what I did, I guess.
Well, I've got a friend of ours who works with the show. He also teaches at Texas State, and he's gigged around here in town. And he said that one of the things he loves about gigging around here is that you might show up at a show and one dude will be doing Willie Nelson covers and the next fucking band is doing Butthole Surfer stuff, and you're like, what is happening?
To me, that is, those two bands are a perfect example. Those are totally Austin bands, both
right?
Of them.
And they captured.
Willie became a different kind of Willie when he moved back from Nashville, and the Butthole Surfers, when they could, they're all from different places, but I know that Gibby was in San Antonio and Dallas, and then when they got to Austin, there's just a thing. It's kind of currency. You got to be a little bit weird. You got to be a little bit kind of out of the box, and unfortunately, when you go out in the bigger world, that's what works against you a lot of the time. Willie's probably the best success of doing that. But a lot of bands, even the Butthole Surfers, everyone loved them, but they had one hit, with Pepper, and they're mostly like just the weird band from Austin that everyone loved,
Yeah, when I think of them, I think of who was in my room last night in that weird film they did with Alex Winter, the barbecue movie. That was crazy.
Well, let me tell you something, man. When my mom died when I was 20, I went on the road and I came home and Gibby was living in my mom's room. Everything, my whole house was trashed. I was a skateboarder as a kid. All my skateboards were gone. They were stolen. All my records were gone. They're just a bunch of weirdos in the house. Yeah, it was my cat. My cat was almost dead. My cat was about to starve. I remember I'd been on tour. My first tour was a very interesting time in my life. And I came home and just everything was so different. We're pretty close to that world. My brother was a booking agent at a Cannibal Club in Emos early on.
So what you're saying is that it was Gibby that was in your room last night.
Yeah, pretty close.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
So back to the Christmas show. One of the things that you mentioned a moment ago was that in this show, you really try to capture all the feelings that we might be having towards the end of the year, nearing the holidays. That was actually something I was going to mention to you. My wife and I have talked about this a number of times. One of the things we love about the show is that it's not just a music show. It feels like communing with friends during the holidays, in that there's always kind of an amalgamation of feelings. You're happy that you're seeing your friends. There's jokes, there's laughter, but then there's also melancholy because we're remembering the folks who are no longer with us. And it feels like that your show captures that totally. Was that something that you started out doing, or did that happen organically with this show?
Kind of both. I just think it's important. It's funny how, the ballad came about in the 1600s in Ireland. Do you know what the ballad was for? It was for tough motherfuckers to cry too. It's because life's hard, man. And you don't want to cry. You don't want to be in that space every night. That's why I do it once a year. But I mean, this time of year is a time to let go and let it out, man. Get all that shit out and get ready for the new year and start fresh in January. It's a beautiful thing. And I think it's funny because most people, I think, like it. Some people will come and they'll be like, man, it was kind of heavy. And it's like, well, yeah, life's heavy, dude. And, and if you go with it, if you can deal with the thing, I don't know. I just know I always feel better when I'm an audience member and I go to something that's authentic. I'd rather not have, a bunch of BS like tiptoe through the tulips bullshit, and I want to hear something real. And I think it's important for us. So to me, it's the holiday show is about giving a space for us to collectively open up and be emotional and be real and be like, and the songs are that I choose are, they're not all sad.
No.
It's not like things sad, but they're winsome, some of them, like my Christmas song. And then, and then we got some fun tunes and stuff. And, but yeah, it just feels right to me. It feels spiritually right to do that kind of show. And I feel like part of my job as a singer is, like you come to my Antone show, you're not going to feel any of that energy. You're going to feel like fucking let's get down on a Friday night energy and let's rock out. It's real intense, a very different vibe, and I do that on purpose.
The other thing that I love about this show is that there is an element of storytelling to it too that doesn't really happen in other shows. And I'm a producer here in Austin on Testify. We're a live storytelling show, and I really appreciate that you take that. There seems to be a patience with the show where you tell stories a little bit, you introduce the songs and stuff like that. And one of the things that I thought I would ask you about is that it always amazes me when a performer is able to do something on stage that is emotionally wrenching. And I remember in the live stream that you did when you were talking about Molly, the prettiest one, and I'm quoting you here, you say that you're going to surf the wave between the beauty and emotion and try not to get way down so that I can't do it justice. And listening to you talk about that, I was I don't know if you're familiar with it, but Wolfgang Van Halen's song Distance about losing his dad.
Oh, no.
I've watched him do that live, and I watched you do Molly, the prettiest one. And I've seen other performers on stage telling stories that are just gut-wrenching. How is that for you? Do you just feel emotionally shredded after having done those things, or does it become a rote thing after a while? You do it a lot and it just becomes blunted.
Well, no, because that's a good question. I think, I'm working with it. I'm answering in a roundabout way, but it's going to be a good answer, I think. I'm working with these Russian singers that are disabled that have been major like spinal injuries and stuff to sing. It's a project that's really cool. And, the thing is that when you sing, I was trying to, because, I'm trying to teach them, like, because they're all like, la da 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 da, but they try to sing this very uppy kind of thing because they don't want to show their pain. And I'm like, look, man, not to be flippant, but look at, this is an opportunity to dig into yourself and do something real.
Yeah.
And to me, when you're an artist, you're surfing a wave between this deep well that you could fall in and maybe never get out.
Yeah.
And then this thing that's above it. And if you got to split the difference. And when you go this right space, this is the healing space. And it's also the space where when a listener listens to you and they can feel it, this is what I was telling these singers. I said, it's not about pitch. It's not about intonation. Cause we'd see it all the time. You see like a Neil Young and you're like, his voice sounds, some people hate his voice, but it's like, he delivers like a passion and he delivers an authenticity. And then you'll hear someone like Mariah Carey and you just don't even care because she just sounds like a mall puppet, and obviously a lot of people care, but you know what I mean? And,
yeah.
And so that's the thing. Like I try to sit in that space. And to me, that's the reason why I can sing a song like Blue Sky that I've sang 5 trillion times, because it's a song about my mom, and I'm singing about my mom and I'm literally visualizing as much as I can my mom and my relationship and the feelings of that. And, and I think that's why that song matters to people.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that one. That is one of those songs that every time you do it, it shreds me. And it's a joke on the channel. I cry way too much at music, but it's one of those songs that it has that effect on me. And I've always wondered that if after doing it, are you still brought through those emotions like every single time, or is it blunted? But man, what a journey you have to go on every time you do those things.
Yeah, but I mean, it's also a gift. It's a two-handed thing. I mean, it's got a good side and a bad side.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you get to touch a lot of people, and we get to experience those emotions and put name to them.
And we do too. Musicians are getting therapy by singing these songs. I mean, that's part of why I think so many musicians were so messed up during the pandemic, because we didn't have the outlet, you know?
Wow. Yeah, I had not even thought of that. Self-therapy, and that self-therapy goes away.
Yeah, our therapist disappeared for 2.5 years.
Right. Well, we're going to have to start wrapping up. I hate to do that, Ian. We're having such a great conversation, but I want to make sure that I let folks know that you've got a merch store and you've got some really cool stuff. There are a lot of musicians who have merch. You do stuff like you will handwrite people's favorite lyrics to them as part of the merch stuff. That is really neat. How long have you been doing that?
I think 3 years.
That is really cool. And then you also have workshops that you do. And are those down in Wimberley?
Wimberley, Texas, October. I think it's the first week in October. We still have they sell out every year, but we just did it. So we have a few slots left. I think we've about probably half to 2/3 sold for this year. You know, we cap it, I think, at 15.
Oh, wow. So it is a really personal experience with you.
Yeah.
And how long are those workshops, Ian?
3 days, man. It's like it's like everything else I do. I'm not going to just show up and like, hey, here's a guitar, let's jam. It's it's like we try to get into the spirit of it all, and we really try to dig into the deeper stuff, because that's where this stuff really happens. You don't just write because, you
Right.
gotta have some heart and soul and spirit in it,
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. Well, I'll make sure I put up all that information on our website and on our YouTube page so people can go and check that out. And then I want to make sure that I mention these dates as well. So December 8th is in New Braunfels, December 9th, Austin. And in Austin, you have Bucko Allen and Warren Hood at all of these in Texas. But you also, here in Austin, you've got Serena Guthrie. Is that right?
Very excited about that. Yeah.
Awesome. And then you're going to be December 10th in Houston, 11th down in Galveston, and then 12th down in Tomball. And then it goes past that, but those are the Texas dates, right?
Yeah, Texas dates. And then there's one in Dallas at the very end on the 16th. But
oh, gotcha.
Let's see. Galveston's sold out. Houston, show one's almost sold out. Texas, Austin, we have like 50 tickets. And then the New Braunfels one, I think we have like 15 tickets, because that's a small room.
Gotcha.
So they're selling pretty. I mean, who knows? You never know what's going to happen. But I think most of the show is probably going to be sold out. So, definitely, if you want to get tickets, get them in the next couple of days, I'd say.
Absolutely. My wife and I bought them the moment they went on sale. We're excited. And if I wanted to play a song that would be emblematic of that show that we could segue out of, what song should I play, folks, Ian?
Maybe the Christmas song, if you can find it. I can send it to you if you don't have it.
Oh, I have it. So,
Cool.
So we'll segue out of this with oh my gosh, now I'm blanking on the name, Ian.
It don't seem like Christmas.
Just don't seem like Christmas. That's it. So Ian, thank you so much for being here with me.
Yeah, thanks for doing this, man.
Absolutely. And folks, here we go. It just don't seem like Christmas. Take care, everyone.
Though it may not snow this year, I'd take the rain. You were here, and through the maelstrom of your eyes, yeah, I'd find some light to sympathize. Do you think you might be willing to come around this year? It just don't seem like Christmas when you're not here. Ooh. Spent some time on the avenue, but nothing seemed to fit my mood. Yeah, all these things you would have liked around the tree Christmas night. Though the weather's cold and cloudy, one thing's becoming clear. It just don't seem like Christmas when you're not here. You Mistletoe kisses, yeah, I still remember. Years passed us by, and now it's December. Presents unopened, wishes unspoken. Send them along and away. Wherever you might be tonight, whoever's sleeping by your side, come on and buy the Christmas tree. I hope that you might think of me and try to make yourself a promise to get in touch this year. 'Cause it just don't seem like Christmas when you're not here. Whoa, just don't seem like Christmas when you're not here.